So I got this package today. It's from Little Guy Racing Parts, and I'm very excited for this build. So let me go ahead, we'll toss it on the workbench and show you guys what we ordered. We also got the paint to paint this thing. So let's just go ahead and crack this thing right open and show you guys what we're working with. So this is my SCX24 Little Guy Racing Parts Ripper chassis, and I am pumped to get this thing built. As you guys know, I have a bunch of real life Jeeps, so this was like end goal of what I wanted my SCX24 to do. Now that we have the YouTube, we kind of have an excuse to build this thing. So let's go over everything that came inside of the box. So for starters, as you can see, this is a full setup. It's a full chassis, frame, body, cage, all the panels and interior. So it's basically everything you're gonna need to transform your SCX24. So we have the frame, and this is all 3D printed, but this is possibly the best quality 3D printing I've ever seen in my life. This stuff is phenomenal. So we got the frame, we got the main part of the body, so this will be like the tub. We got the cage that'll sit right down in there. We'll go ahead and open these up and put it all together a little bit later in the video. And we have all of our body panels in here. I'll go ahead and dump this out and show you guys some of the detail on these panels. It's kind of insane for this small crawler that we're building. So of course we have all of our hardware. It's really nice to get all new hardware. We've got our center section cross member that'll have all the control arm mounts, the hood, grill. The interior is insane on this, that this is 3D printed and this good of quality. We've got that, all of our fenders. We got seats for the inside. Basically anything you can think of is in this kit. Now we are gonna have to get this painted before we fully assemble it, but I'm gonna go ahead and open this stuff up. We'll show you guys how it looks somewhat put together, and then we'll go ahead, paint it. I already picked up the paint. I'll show you guys that in a minute. This kit also comes with their control arms and their servo mount, so that's really nice that those all come with the kit. And honestly, I see a lot of people commenting that 150 is kind of expensive. Now I agree, it is fairly expensive for an SCX24, considering you can get the entire thing brand new for around $150. However, the printer needed to print this type of material and this quality is, I believe, $7,500 minimum. It's a very expensive printer. And then the time to just design something like this is countless hours. So there's a lot of time, and that's kind of what you're paying for as well. Now that we got all that out of the way though, let's go ahead and open some of this stuff up, sort of sit it together, and show you guys what it looks like. So I'm not going to be able to put much more together just because I'm not trying to screw it together yet. But as you can see, this is a very detailed kit. It fits together very well, and it's going to look sick with some nice new big tires on the bottom. Going to pick up some Little Guy Racing Part tires and wheels for this thing as well. One thing I was very happy with and kind of surprised was just the fitment of this stuff. It fits literally perfectly. This is such a well thought out kit. But before we can get it built, we're going to have to paint it. So let me show you guys what color paint I chose for this. So this lighting does not do this color justice, but it's very, very similar to my actual JKU color for my real Jeep. And then we're going to do silver as the secondary, just like my real Jeep, because that combo looks good on pretty much anything. You can't really go wrong with silver and red, to be honest. So the body, the hood, all the fenders, the fender armor, everything like that is going to be the red color. Then we're going to do the cage, bumper, and some accent colors as the silver. And then on the wheels, we're going to get silver wheels, and we're going to paint match the ring to match the vehicle, because I'll put a picture of mine up. Basically going to look like mine in real life as far as color combo goes. But now that we've gone over all that, let's go ahead, we'll head out to the garage and lay down our first coat of paint on this thing. Get this thing set up, and hopefully by the end of today we'll have it somewhat assembled and ready to go. Now one downside I do have to let you guys know before we start. So I've had pretty good luck with this filler primer on my actual Jeeps. I bedlined one of my Jeeps and it did a really, really good job. We're going to give it a shot on this little Ripper chassis and see how it does. It might not work very well because it's not as, it's a lot more like powdery and stuff, but we'll see how it does. We'll go ahead and lay down the first coat now. So after 2 coats, it's actually turning out really well. It is kind of filling in a few of those little imperfections from printing, but I'm also not too worried about getting this perfect just because I do kind of like how it looks with the texture. It looks a little bit bedlined, but now we've gone ahead and painted the hood, and as you can see, turning out really, really well. We just have a couple more panels to finish, then we'll be ready to put it all together. All right, a little sneak peek of what the color is going to look like, and this is actually very, very close to what my real Wrangler looks like, so I'm very happy with how the color came out. Finish is honestly really well too, just considering it's a 3D print. Sometimes they don't turn out great, but I'm pretty happy with this. Get some more coats laid down and get it all evened out. That's the big thing, is making sure everything lines up. Make sure everything is the correct color. That way a fender's not a little mismatch or anything like that. All right, everything is painted red. Gotta let it dry. Cage is painted in the silver. Alright, so I also painted the rock sliders black. However, I think I'm going to go ahead and paint them silver. Also, quick tip, wear some gloves. I kind of screwed that up. Alright, everything is finished being painted, and I actually added a little detail which I like a lot, and I went ahead and painted what will be the bumpers on the rig, a silver, kind of like aluminum color. Same color as the rock sliders on the side and the cage. I think that'll look really, really cool once it's all put together. For the interior, I just went ahead and painted it black. Might touch it up in the future, but I'm pretty happy with black. But let's go ahead and start getting this assembled. One thing, you're going to need a 000 Phillips head screwdriver, and that's pretty much going to be a must if you're building this. Also, ignore the red on my hand. Like I told you guys, this is the next day, and my hand still has red paint on it, and it's probably going to be there throughout the whole video. Like I said, pick up one of these screwdrivers, and I think we're ready to get started assembling this thing. One thing for you guys to know, and there's not really any instructions, so this center cross member here, you're actually going to want to go ahead and cut out to make room for where your motor and all your links are going to connect. Just chop that right out of the setup. Then you'll have room to mount all that up. I didn't see that going over, so I figured I would go ahead and toss that in the video for you guys. So I've gone ahead and just set together the tub, the hood, the cage, and the rock sliders to show you guys more of the color, and I think this turned out really, really good. I'm super happy with how this came out, and then here it is with the bumper. I just have this all set together to show you guys, but this is what I was talking about where I painted the bumpers. So I decided to start on the tub first, so we went ahead and screwed in all of the fenders and the rock sliders onto this, and the fitment is phenomenal. There's really no issues with fitment here. Turned out really, really good. We'll probably throw it on the frame as late as possible in this build, just so that way we have access to all of the electronics, where to put the links and everything like that. Super, super simple to do though. It's just literally Phillips screws to toss this all together. It's very easy to do. So I was tired of messing around with these little tiny screwdrivers and kind of not having the right size. So I went ahead and ditched this. We headed over to Home Depot and picked up a nice new Craftsman. It's got the changing out bits and everything like that with the correct size. Much, much better. If you're building this, I would recommend spending the like $10 it costs to pick one of these up. Made the job so much easier, and this build is going a lot faster with this. But that being said, front fenders on, back fenders on, and rock sliders are on. Now we just have to go ahead and repeat this step on the other side, and we'll be good to go. And just like that, both sides are complete. Very simple to put together, and you kind of see it starting to take shape, and I'm really happy with how these colors came out. They match really well. My big concern was that it wasn't going to match. The grill will go right up here, and as you can see, it'll be a perfect fit as well. Toss the cage in and give you guys a better look of how that looks. So as you can see, rock sliders and bumpers and cage all match, and then the rest of the body will be all red. But like I can't say it enough, the fitment on this kit is very, very good. It's very easy to go together. I haven't had any issues so far. Alright, so I got the hood and the grill tossed in, and I do it to adjust some of the fitment just a little bit once I get this more put together. But I'm very happy with how it fits so far, and it kind of is nice to have a little bit of a gap there because we're going to have to pop this open to access the battery, the ESC, pretty much all of that stuff will be up underneath of the hood. It's kind of a cool spot to store it because you're not going to see it once the whole thing's put together. There won't be really wires that you'll see. Besides the front servo wire, there's really not much you can do about seeing that. Alright, so now we're going to work on the interior. Now this is kind of the part where I got a little bit lost for a minute until I just sat down and figured this out, since there are no instructions. But the dash is going to mount directly to the cage, and then the seats are actually going to mount to the cross member bracket right here. That'll also mount to the cage, so it'll all pretty much be tied into the cage. Pretty simple to install. It just took me a second to figure out like the orientation of everything and the way it was going to set up, so I figured I'd go ahead and show you guys that real quick. And just like that, the dash is installed, and I'm pretty happy with how the black turned out. I could have done a little bit more details on this, but no going back now, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Now we got to go ahead, get that cross member tossed in, and then we'll toss in the seats. So the cross member is in. You can kind of see it down there. It's what the back side of the dash is resting on and attached to. Now we'll attach the seats to that cross member as well. And just like that, the entire interior is in, and I've gone ahead and installed the cage into the tub. That was very simple, and I figured that didn't really need to be in the video. Now we got this little cargo rack in the back. I'm not sure if I want to paint it silver or leave it black. I think for now we'll probably go ahead and leave it black since it matches the interior pretty well. Alright, so picking up where I left off, we installed the rear storage rack, and I actually installed the front fender liners as well. And I went ahead and put it on the frame just so that way I could get everything buttoned up. You kind of need the frame for the front fender liners to go in. Now is the time where we build these Super 8 axles. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on these just because you guys know how to build axles for the most part, and they're fairly straightforward, honestly. There's really only one way they can go. So here's the front axle out of the bag, and I'm actually not going to be using these plastic knuckles because I'm going to be putting some brass ones on. And I believe most aftermarket knuckles, if you guys have a brass set laying around, will work on the Super 8 axles without any issue. So I've got my spare stock axle to kind of take all the bearings and gears and everything out of and put into the Super 8s. And just like that, without the steering included, we pretty much wrapped up the front axle build. Very simple. One thing to keep in mind is you're going to want to take the front O-rings off of the pinion, basically. That's what I know it as since I'm used to real differentials. I'm not sure what is really referred to here, but you're going to take the O-rings off of it and get rid of those, or else you're going to have pretty much too much preload and it'll be very, very hard to turn. It's going to wear out your motor a lot quicker. I went ahead and tossed together the rear axle as well. That one's even easier than the front. So went ahead, got both axles together. Now we got to get the steering set up. I'm not sure if we're going to use these brass spacers or not, but let's go ahead and get these axles tossed onto the Jeep. Got to install that center cross member of the control arms mount, get the front servo on there, and this thing should be ready to go. As you can see, I'm using an Endura red motor here, and then we've got the Emax servo set up for the steering. This body is actually very, very well set up for the servo to go up inside of it and not have any issues. I know when you run an Emax on a stock frame, you do run into issues of it hitting the frame when you're flexed and everything like that. On this setup, we're not going to have to worry about that at all. All right, so I got the cross member in with the motor. We're kind of going to speed through this process because this is the same whether you're building a Ripper chassis or a regular SCX24, and I believe most people know how to do this already. If not, there are other videos out there showing you control arm setups and axle installs and everything like that. As you can see, we are almost done, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and we'll have a fully complete Ripper chassis. And just like that, it is complete, and I am super, super happy with how this thing turned out. It looks sick, especially with the Little Guy Racing Parts Swamp King tires. Absolutely perfect setup for this build, and I'm very happy with the colors, the fitment, everything just worked so, so well on this. If you guys are considering picking one up, I would definitely say it's worth it. This is the most detailed SCX24 you can probably build, honestly. No issues putting it together. Every hole lined up, every bolt was there, every bolt was labeled very, very well. The only thing was there was no instructions, but now this video is out there, so it should make it a little bit easier in the future if you did have any questions. Now, as far as pricing goes, it is a bit expensive just because you need to buy the kit and the axles, which is kind of the kicker. The axles suck to buy. I have heard it works okay with other axles. However, with the pushed out link mounts and pushed out shock mounts for the correct angles and everything, I would probably recommend getting the Super 8 axles. But I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. It honestly is so wide that it looks like a 1-ton axle swap Jeep in real life. If you guys know what I'm talking about, looks identical to like a TJ that's got 1 tons and like 43s under it. So I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.